Trump says thank you and ushers in Mad Dog Mattis.
Political analysts Wendy Patrick and Laura Fink join us with more. Ladies, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Laura, a lot of people watching last night, some saying, does he know the election is over?
That's right, Charlie. He was on his victory tour, or as I like to call it, the in-your-face tour. I won, in your face. But I'm not surprised, but I question the efficacy of this. What does it gain him other than to sort of stroke his ego and remind him what he really loves about the job, which is campaigning? The important business of the nation, I cannot tell you, there aren't enough hours in the day to affect the transition. Usually presidents are working on overtime and not sleeping. They don't have time to take out, to have a rally and pat themselves on the back and engage in, chanting about lock her up and build a wall. But that seems to be Donald Trump's priority this week. He seems to be enjoying himself.
Wendy, some would say that if he's going to go out and do this, why not take this opportunity to kind of unite the nation? Instead, it seemed like he was taking jabs again.
You got to wonder how much of that was off script or how much of that was actually in his teleprompter, because you're right. One of the other things that we've got to notice about Trump is it's true. He spent the last couple of weeks cooped up in Trump Tower or his golf course in New Jersey. In other words, he couldn't wait to get back out. I almost want to say on the campaign trail, a flashback, if you will, from last night. But one of the things he really wants to do is maintain that, really the excitement that he generated along the way. He is also, though, Charlene Raoul, he is also really in record time making these appointments. If you look at how long it's taken presidents in the past, Trump is right up there with the fastest of them. And, you make the joke about, he uses almost all the hours of the day, he doesn't sleep. Somehow he manages to do all of what he's supposed to be doing and then also go on this, I'll call it a victory tour. There's a lot of things we can call it. The thank you tour, whatever we want to say. Who's to say that some of that isn't designed to unite the party and to energize supporters that we all share a common goal, really, whether you're Democrat or Republican?
Okay, let's talk about James Mattis for a minute, Secretary of Defense. Your thoughts on that pick?
Well, James Mattis is the mad dog. He's also been known as the philosopher monk. He has a very different approach than we have seen. He's extremely aggressive. And the other thing to note about him is that he has been in the military you have to be out of the military for more than 7 years, I believe. And we have not seen this in a defense secretary pick. He needs a special waiver of Congress. And that has to do with the separation of the military it should be run by civilians. And you're considered a civilian when you've been separated from the military for that period of time. So I don't think this is a shock. I actually think that this pick has the broadest agreement among people. Really? I mean, he does have experience in the military, whereas we see all of his other cabinet picks don't seem to believe in the job that they are in fact doing. We see that his head of HHS doesn't believe in the Fair Housing Act. His Attorney General pick doesn't believe in enforcement of the Voting Rights Act, and really has said in the past that civil rights cases were a waste of his time. We're going to see a head of the EPA that doesn't believe in climate change. So this is a much more traditional pick than the extremely conservative cabinet that we've seen in his picks so far.
All right, Wendy.
Well, the nomination of Mad Dog has been met by bipartisan praise and bipartisan support. And supposedly there's a waiver ready, because obviously you need to have been out of the military for 7 years, but there's a waiver that can bypass that. It's been done in the past. There's precedent for it. And, the word is that it's going to be done here because there's been such support. But picking up on the issue of who's being appointed where and are they good fits, one of the criticisms that's been leveled in the last couple of days is that he's populating his cabinet with billionaires and not blue-collar billionaires like he ran a platform on. And many people in America are wondering whether or not people that have never been a part of the working class, or at least not for many years, can relate and act in the best interest of the working class. Now, remember that Donald took the Pledge of Allegiance, I'll call it. He said what he was going to do, and people are expecting him to make good on those promises. Now, whether or not he will depends in part on who he surrounds himself with, and that's one of the reasons these cabinet picks are so important. But you're right, this is one of the least controversial of the picks that he's done so far.
So he made the pick, but he told everybody don't say anything because he's going to make the announcement on Monday. At the same time in his rallies, taking a jab still at the press. This relationship is going to be very interesting between him and the press over the next few years. Laura?
Well, it also, the press, he will continue to be the whipping boy of Donald Trump. We can expect that for the next 4 years. He's talked about almost avoiding the press entirely and simply going on social media, almost in a sort of state-run television kind of way. So none of this is surprising. But this sort of controversial, aggressive tone that he takes with the press and also with his opposition, I want to take us back in a time machine to 2008 when Barack Obama won and the Democrats controlled both houses of Congress. The demands from conservatives for him to be conciliatory, for him to bring people together, were echoing and resonant for months. We hear from the Republican side now about unity, crickets. Crickets. So very different world, very different time than we're living in now.
All right, Wendy, so the media is dishonest, and then he took jab at the Washington insiders, but most of the people that he's putting on they're all Washington insiders. So what do we take? You have the last word here. What do we take out of this?
Well, as you and Shelley know, as media professionals, your relationship with those you cover is very complicated. Present company excluded, I hope.
Oh, of course.
But when you look at somebody like Donald Trump, I mean, the media gets it. They're going to cover him no matter what he does. If he was here, we'd all be covering him as well. And Trump, knowing that, does have a relationship with them. Part of that's behind the scenes that we don't get to see. And it was interesting that he called that meeting at Trump Tower shortly after he was elected. Boy, we wish we were a fly on the wall there. And of course, there were a couple of leaks. But the bottom line is, he understands their role. They understand his role and what he has to say. I wouldn't be surprised if he continues to use them to fuel not his campaign, but his presidency in a positive light like he did last night. We all watched for an hour. The media filmed for an hour. Nobody turned off their cameras. He's going to continue to use that relationship to his advantage.
Okay, it's going to be fun. That's what we know. Let's see what happens. Laura, Wendy, we thank you both. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, you
Great
too.
to see you.